Hello, and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansevieri.
And Amy Cornell.
And welcome. We're so glad you're here. I'm looking forward to talking about this. We were just in the green room going over show notes and all the things. So I'm really excited about this episode. I'm also very excited. I know I've said this now for a few shows in a row, but Think Local, Sell Global is up on Amazon. Grab your copy today. How to Build Author Buzz in Your Backyard. It is the first in my author visibility series. They are short, very hyper-focused books in specific areas of marketing. So instead of creating one big book, which I may still do down the road, this series is going to be about really picking a specific area, in this case, obviously, local marketing, that I feel authors just aren't spending enough time focused on, and really kind of microdosing your marketing, which I really love. So I'm very excited about that. As a reminder, we love reviews wherever you listen to podcasts, and we love hearing from you. So text the word podcast to 888-402-8940. We get questions all the time. We have some in the queue. If we have time after the show, we'll definitely address those. Part of the reason why I love this topic is, so in the show notes, it says, is this right for you, or is it just a shiny object? This shiny object has been around for a long time. Yeah. Selling direct to readers, mostly because Amazon makes you mad and you're like, I just want to make more money. I'm not making enough money. I want to sell direct to, I want to sell off my website. I want to sell direct to readers. And in theory, it sounds like a really good idea, but the execution of it doesn't always make a ton of sense, right?
Right. No, it's yeah.
And here we are, I have to stop you right there, because here we are again, like, we're totally going to get a review from somebody saying, Amy and Penny are just a bunch of buzzkills, because we're buzzkills.
I know, you totally caught me. I'm like, how to be productive and sound like this is... But it's true. I hope most of you, especially if you've been listening for a while, that is one of the reasons you keep listening, is because if anything, we do not sugarcoat. So here we are yet again talking about something that continues to be a big conversation in the author space, ditching Amazon. We get it. We get just as frustrated by Amazon as y'all do. So we can understand where that comes from. But there are a lot of considerations similar to, the recent show we did about charging for a newsletter. Not impossible, but it's not the right fit for everybody, for sure. There needs to be, and that's why we're here. We want to talk about when it works, when it doesn't, so you can go into this a little more educated on what the options are. And it might be something you can do down the road, but it may not be what's best for you now. Right, Penny?
Right. I mean, again, this is not something, so kind of like with the paid newsletter episode, this is not something that I would lead the parade with. Right.
Yes.
I think that if your goal is to sell direct, I think that then the marketing actions that you take should be focused on, my goal is in a year, I want to start selling direct, or whatever your timeline is. And that always starts with a newsletter. So go back to our newsletter episode, listen to that, because if you don't have a newsletter, and a lot of times a lot of authors that I talk to want to sell direct, and they have no direct communication with their readers. So I'm like, well, how are you going to, how's that going to happen?
Where are these people? Right. Where are these people at? What's happening?
What's happening? What's going on? The other thing is, though, too, and I got to tell you, in an age where, scammers are just like aplenty, right? People are, and I'm not suggesting that you are at all scamming authors. Like, don't send us hate mail. We're not suggesting, or scamming readers. We're not suggesting that. But consumers are very distrusting. So yes. Amazon is a trusted source, and that's part of the reason why you have to build towards this. You have to become that trusted source. So, getting a random email from an author saying, you can buy my book on my website. It's like, well, where am I going actually? You know what I mean? Like, where's this link really leading? I got to tell you, when I get emails from people like, click this link, I rarely click the link anymore, just because.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, it's become, so again, your first piece of this is you got to start a newsletter. You have to build trust, because the higher royalties, faster payouts, customer ownership, all of that is wildly appealing. The biggest piece of this is being less dependent on Amazon. I fully get that, but you got to you have to build the trust factor first. And I know I've jumped ahead in the show notes, so I apologize about that. But obviously I have strong feelings about this because it's been a conversation that authors have had for I would say practically as long as we've been in business.
Right. And I can't believe the statistic. That kind of blew my mind about how many indie authors are already selling direct. I guess that doesn't mean successfully. Sorry.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think what was it? So
that's a misleading statistic, I think.
30% of indie authors are already selling direct. But here's the thing though, and I realize that, so now let's just throw our show notes out the window because obviously we both have strong feelings about this. I got to tell you, I think that those authors are probably selling something that they can't get on Amazon. So I've had, meaning different editions of the book, right? So hardback, for example, like if the hardback edition is, or a special edition or anniversary edition or whatever that they're selling on their website. Secondarily, these indie authors have probably spent a lot of time building their mailing list and their
right.
And that's confidence and things like that.
Right. And that's a good point. Just because they are selling direct doesn't mean they're also not selling on Amazon and all the other places.
Well, I'm sure they are. Because I talked to an author, I think it was 2 years ago, and I don't know if they ever did it. I mean, I hope that they did because they were sitting in a situation where they had a very active mailing list. They had a large following on social media, and they were really set up well to do this. But obviously, there was a lot of work that went ahead of it. And they wanted to release a special anniversary edition of the book with French flaps and the whole thing. And they were like, I really just want to sell that on my website. And I'm like, oh, I think that's a great idea in that situation. And I'm betting that if they did that, I bet that the book did well for them, But I think the majority of authors that we've talked to over the years, it's very cart before the horse, I think, to try and sell books on their website. I mean, would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think this, similar to a paid newsletter, again, for those of you that listen consistently, that makes sense to you. But, it's something that you do once you're established, right. I thought this was another totally relevant statistic. Data shows that 66% of authors successfully selling direct have more than 5 books. And 46% have more than 10 books. I mean, that is a big deal. That's a big platform.
Yeah, that's a big platform. So I think that, the moral of the story is that, yeah, I mean, if that is part of it, if that's your long-term goal, I think that's great. But there are a lot of steps that, that kind of precede that. And I know we're going to break down some of those, but the first is you got to have some kind of a shopping. So there are a couple things to consider. And one of them is a complete turnoff to the majority of authors that I discussed this with. The first is you have to have a shopping cart. Shopping carts are easy enough. Like you can get something through Shopify if you want, or there are plugins for websites where you can have shopping carts. We have a shopping cart on our site. I still don't sell books on our site because I don't want to be shipping books all day. And that's the second piece of it, is authors do not want to be shipped. The majority of authors get turned off by this because they don't want to be shipping their own books. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, there's taxes and customer service and potential refunds. It's like, sorry, clearly I am not the market for this.
Well, but I mean, the direct, so whatever your taxes are, as you said, the customer service, refunds for books are surprisingly and ridiculously high. That is actually, book returns is actually the one thing that will undermine publishing companies more than literally anything else. It is staggering how many people return books. It's actually insulting. That's probably not really the right word, but
I think it's the right word. That is insulting.
It's terrible. So I think that, you have to I think if you have like a special, again, here we are like buzz killing, Amy and Penny are just buzz killing all over the place. I think if you have, as Amy pointed out, if you have enough books, if you have a loyal audience, and, if all of this, none of this stuff, taking all this into consideration, you still want to do it, I think that's great. Generally, I think the refunds will go down for like special editions and things like, I'm not suggesting that 60% of the books that you sell on your website are going to come screaming back into your mailbox as, you know, wanting a refund necessarily. But I think that all of these do have to be considered for sure.
Right. And even shipping costs. I mean, that's a huge thing too, that just psychologically, from a buyer perspective, why a lot of people shop on Amazon, because most people nowadays have Prime benefits and they can mostly do their shopping and not worrying about the total going out the door because of shipping fees and all that other stuff. And so that's something else to consider too, is that, you know, all of a sudden your book is now going to be priced what in order for it to really make sense for you and for the cost involved to fulfill these orders. I mean, and at that point, are you actually staying within typical retail expectations for what people pay for books in your genre? You know, that's another huge, I think, consideration.
Well, and here's the thing though, too. So not just the fact that you have to fulfill this, you would be amazed how much more people will pay, how much consumers avoid paying for shipping.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon Prime, and this is where, again, Amazon is very good news, bad news. This is where Amazon has really kind of killed shipping fees for a lot of people, right? And I've actually talked to consumers who will say, you know what, I would rather add something else to my cart that I don't particularly need to avoid paying for shipping fees.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Yeah, it really, really is. So that's also something to consider. The other piece of it though, too, and again, I think in the right situation, this can absolutely work, is this is a new part of your business. So you want to make sure that you have the bandwidth to run it, because the time that you're going to invest in launching your own store is going to take away from something else. So if you have everything else, like if your website is tight, if your list is taken care of, or you have somebody helping you out, whatever that is, and you have the time to invest in this, then, and you have, you know, an active mailing list and a lot of fans, and as Amy pointed out, more than one book out there, right? Then it's definitely something to consider. But there are a lot of pieces to it. I mean, like with anything. What's interesting is that years ago when Amazon first started, publishers waited a while to start this chorus of complaining, but big publishing houses in New York, I think Amazon was in business for maybe 5 years or something and selling books. And they were just hating on the idea of like, oh my gosh, and Amazon and blah, blah, blah. And we want to get book sales. So a lot of them opened up stores on their website to try and sell direct to consumers. But again, here's the thing. Even though, like, okay, would I have any hesitation buying something from Simon & Schuster? Probably not. But at the same time, I have an account with Amazon. It's one click. It's easy. Boom, it's in my shopping cart. I get it with breakfast tomorrow. You know what I mean?
And all the other things that you need, right?
And all the other things that I need. So that's the other thing to consider, is that is what and so by the time publishers got around to saying, we want to do stores, and many of them did start stores on their website, it was just too late. You know?
Yeah. I think that's very true.
Yeah.
I think purchases, I'd be curious. I mean, we will never get this, but I would be really interested to see how many book purchases on Amazon are just the book versus part of a bigger order. And I think that works in authors' favor, candidly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're already shopping, you're building your cart, you're adding stuff that you need anyway. And then you're like, you know what? I've heard about this author, or I've seen this cover, or I'm ready for a new book, or like I have a vacation coming up. You know what I mean? But they're already doing the shopping. And that's what's psychologically so brilliant about Amazon, and where it really serves authors, is that you become a part of this like shopping mindset when you're on Amazon versus anywhere else. It has to be such an intentional act to go there, to seek out, to buy the book, you know, and that's really hard to keep people's attention that long nowadays, unfortunately, you know?
Right. And I think, you know, to what we said earlier, I think that if you're going to do this, I mean, I think there are pieces that you have to have in place, but I think that you have to offer them something that they can't get on Amazon. I think that's, you know, and in some cases, like we've worked with authors where they're selling a journal as a companion piece to their book on their website. They've built a mailing list, they have all the things, and now they're selling this journal, right? Which is a great companion piece to that particular book that they're writing. And that tends to work, but it has to be something that they can't get on Amazon, because if the choice is between getting 5 things I need on Amazon at the same time or buying a book off of the author's website, I'm probably going to default to Amazon. And in some cases, like authors will offer additional swag, like you get a book and you get some other fun swag stuff and you get a tote bag. So so if you're going to do this, I mean, you have to make it appealing. It has to be something they can't get at Amazon, and it also has to be appealing. In some cases, that is a special edition of a book or an autographed book or something like that, which obviously is not something that they can get on Amazon either.
Yeah, I think you can have a lot of fun with this, but I think, again, I think your point, Penny, is this where you need to be focusing your time? I think is huge.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
is focusing your time on doing this really going to serve your broader goal, long-term goals for your author brand and what you're trying to do? Or are you at a point in your author career where you're really better served to, nose down, get more books out, let Amazon do the work for you for now, and then revisit this when it makes more sense and there's less risk involved for you, candidly, for the effort that you're going to have to put in.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, and I've seen authors that also sell their books on Etsy. And I think I mentioned that one time to Amy in a text. I'm like, oh, maybe I should start selling some of my books on Etsy. I don't even think that she responded to that, because she was just like, that's just, and for some authors, but, in some situations, I think using a portal like that already gets a lot of traffic can absolutely work for you. But when you think about what people are buying on Etsy, it's probably not a romance novel. You know what I mean? So you also have to make sure that you have an audience match. I think that getting away from Amazon, which is the driving factor behind selling off of your website, if that is your ultimate goal, then I think you have to, kind of consider your options and consider all of the things that precede that moment where you say, all right, now I am selling lots of books and I'm doing really well and I'm circumventing the Amazon ecosystem. And if you're already doing that, you should let us know, because we really want to, even though we've been super buzzkill in this show, sorry, but we really want to hear from you, because this is sometimes how we may do a follow-up show, and this is how we build our stories.
Oh yeah, please. I love, people ask us sometimes too, we get this comment a lot like, oh, I'd love to hear a success story about this. And I'm totally open to that. If y'all want to send us your success stories too, because, like Penny said, we feel pretty buzzkill most of the time. It's all, with the right intentions. We're here with the best of intentions. We want to prep y'all. We want to educate you. Our goal is just to have smarter authors, more savvy authors out there doing the work, right? Because we all benefit from that.
Yeah.
But highlighting success stories and the unique ways you made something work for you, especially, awesome. Please let us know.
Yeah, please let us know. Text the word podcast to 888-402-8940 and send us your success story. Tell us why we're wrong. We love your feedback.
That's fun.
Right? Tell us why we're wrong. We love your feedback. Tell us about something that we totally thought, like we just sort of ranted in this show. I realize. I hope it was helpful. I mean, we always want these shows to be helpful, but tell us why we're wrong. We would really love to hear that. Do we have time for a listener question? Do you think
Let's do it?
Okay. I love this one. Can I use my beta reader reviews in my marketing?
I took the last one, so I think you should take this one.
Okay. I vote yes. I mean, I think that if you're getting reader reviews, then, if your beta readers are sending you reviews, the first thing I would say is tell them to put it up on Amazon, like tell them to post it on Amazon. But yeah, you could definitely use your beta reader reviews in marketing for sure. First and foremost is dress up that Amazon retail page with it.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think beta reviews are awesome, but you need to be able to do something with them. So this is the uncomfy part for a lot of people. You need to stay in touch. If your book's not out yet, especially, and they have nowhere to post it, you need to stay in touch with them and send them reminders once the book is up on Amazon and open to reviews, because that is the biggest benefit you could get from that. But, you also, if you have a platform at all, you need to use those as well. So adding them to your website in a dedicated section, highlighting them on social media if you're on social media, highlighting them in your newsletter if you already, and again, we've talked about this, even if you have 5 people signed up for your email list, stay in touch with those 5 people. Don't make them wait around till you feel like there's enough people to make it worth your time. That's not cool, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you need to do something with them that makes sense, but don't just like, it feels good to get them. But I think a lot of authors run into that where they put in the work and the energy to get some beta reviews, but then they're like, beta reader reviews, excuse me. And then it's kind of like, now what happens with these? Which is fair. But yeah, you need to have a plan. You know, like we say, it applies to reviews too. Try to use them in 3 different ways. Anything you do, any win, try to find 3 different ways to repurpose that win to make it work for you.
Yeah, exactly. Never let anything go to waste. That is, reviews are oftentimes hard to come by. Never, ever, ever let anything go to waste. And with that, we thank you so much for listening. As I said, send us your show feedback. Tell us why we're wrong. We love that. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye.